Thomas, a warm welcome to the CF, and thank you very much for your contribution to the program, to the workshop that we have been running now for 2 days. Tell us a little bit on your survey that you presented on the use of the euro in the EU candidate and potential candidate countries in the Western Balkans.
We started the survey project in 2007. It's a household survey. Actually, it's a survey of individuals where interviewers come to the home places of the respondents. It's a survey done in 10 countries, from Poland down to Albania. We have EU countries, but also candidate and potential candidates, countries like Bosnia, Albania, Macedonia, and Serbia. Our survey is representative. That means for age or for the distribution of gender in the region. And what we do is we want to collect information on household behavior. So on their savings decision, on their actual borrowing decision, on their sentiments and expectations, in order to use this information to do an analytical research to better understand household borrowing decision, saving decision, try to identify causal relationships, all things we cannot do with macro data, so therefore this is some kind of research complementing with microdata research done on euroization in this area.
Well, actually, drawing on this survey results, but also that nice study on currency substitutions in Central and Eastern European countries. You presented a nice overview of the determinants of trust in local currencies at this actually opening of the session. Could you describe those main factors in a few words, maybe?
If you just look from a descriptive perspective on data, you see that in Southeastern Europe, trust in local currency is low. And it's low in absolute levels, but it's also low compared to the safe haven currency, the euro. And this is a phenomenon which also persisted during the recent crisis. So even though there was the sovereign debt crisis and there was a deterioration of trust in the euro, still there was a spread of even lower trust in the local currency. And from theory and literature, and also our survey results suggest that there are several factors driving this rather low trust in the local currency. The one is, or the one factor that is important to somehow foster trust would be economic performance, in the sense of if people have the feeling that it will get economically better, they also tend to trust the local currency more. On the other side, it's also important that people have the sense that there is not high inflation or local currency depreciation around the corner. So if they feel it's a rather stable course of the economy, also in its external value, then it's good for the trust in the local currency. And what's also important is that trust in local currency is correlated with political institutions, with trust in other institutions. So if a country is weak in this respect, then this also translates in a weak trust in the local currency. And we did a study using our survey data, trying to find some determinants, what is the influence of memories of past crises. Because in Southeastern Europe, 20, 30 years ago, during transition, during wartime, there were crisis periods which deteriorated trust. And the question is, what is the impact of these memories, of these former crises, of these lifetime experiences on trust today? And what we find is these memories mainly explain the spread between the trust in the euro and trust in the local currency. And what is also interestingly, these memories explain why people trust the local currency compared to people who do not have these memories. because they compare the trust levels in former years with, or the performance of the economy with former years with now. And compared to this, they say, well, it's not so bad. So it's somehow a little bit of a complex situation. On the one side, memories foster trust in the foreign currency, but it also has this kind of stabilizing effect compared to former years. It's better now. But still, if you want to raise trust in order to drive back euroization, you need better economic performance and you need better institutions.
And we've heard about the differences about the deposit and currency substitutions when we analyzed unofficial euroization. What are the implications in terms of the required policy response?
One main finding is that households, and this holds true for deposit substitution as well as currency substitution, which is related to trust in banks and trust in the local currency, is that households are still very sensitive with respect to any crisis signal. So if in the case of turbulences, which either erode trust in banks or erode trust in the local currency, then households in this region are swiftly adjust their portfolios. And this is quite in contrast to the behavior of households in Western Europe. In Western Europe, you can also see this kind of erosion of trust, but people do not act so swiftly. And we think this kind of swift action is related to their past experiences again. So what can be done to the euro rise? I think there can be done quite a lot. So you're not just a victim of the past, you also have a lot of opportunities to gain strength. So concerning the lack of trust in banks, there would be the possibility to better inform people about deposit insurance schemes. Because from our survey data, we know people are not very well informed about this or have even wrong perceptions about deposit insurance. Concerning monetary expectations, it would be necessary, as the countries already have started, still to follow stability-oriented macroeconomic policies, which will stabilize the inflation rate, would stabilize inflation expectations, and would also stabilize exchange rate expectations. Even or equally important would also be to foster sound economic policies and sound fiscal institutions, because people know and feel that when something in the fiscal field goes wrong, this also translates in higher inflation or would translate in more fluctuation of the exchange rate. Concerning memories of past crises, you actually cannot do a lot. But if you stick to sound policies, this would help that people unlearn what they have learned in the past. From literature, we know it takes quite 1 or 2 decades until these memories start to decline, but finally they decline if the environment is fine. And concerning network effects we have found in this region, in some cases it's not really actual network effects, because people do not use the currency that often than they perceive to be, but still these perceptions are important. And the use of the euro for savings or also for payments is sometimes just a habit. And to overcome habits, it also takes some time. So for the last 2 points, one can say de-euroization strategies will work, but they will not work in the short run. It will take quite a long time to overcome these memories and to overcome these habits in their saving and payment behavior.
Thank you for this, and your also very insightful contribution to the CF Roundtable. Policymakers from across the constituency actually discussed the challenge of strengthening credibility and building trust in a very nutshell. What have you retained from the key issues and that came up in the roundtable?
Well, I was reminded once again that country-specific factors matter, that the history of a country matters. So there might be some lock-in effects. And when we do this kind of analysis, we usually abstract a little bit from these institutions, because this is necessary in order to figure out what are really the causal effects on the level of the individual. But when it comes to implementation of policy and policy advice, then again, it's very important to know the institutional setup. And I think the experts in the room here and the country, in the countries, they are much more experts than me. And well, I can give them some theoretically grounded advice, but what's concerned implementation, I think they are more experts. And
thank you again. What are your maybe like first impressions about the CEF, our learning approach, but also what are you taking away to Vienna now?
Well, I'm very grateful to have been here and be able to share our results and to get some feedback on what we are doing here. And I think it's quite professional what you're doing here, very ambitious. And what I learn is, again, to the idea to make workshops very interactive. So it's you follow, you plan, you actually think about it very, very hard, much more than I do usually, and I think I will take this away. It really pays off. Thank you.
Thank you.